Hello, peoples off the tube, and welcome to this list of Doctor Who stories that I think are underrated. Now, first of all, let's address the elephant in the room before we continue. There are 10 things on this list. It's not a top 10 list. We're not quite sinking into that sort of general interest levels. This is just, these are 10 stories. They're even my personal top 10. I had a list of about 12 stories I thought were, well, I mean, it was about 10 actually, that I thought these are probably the most underrated stories in my opinion. But then aesthetically, there was too much Tom Baker in it, so I cut a couple out. I put a couple of other stories in to replace them that are still kind of underrated, but maybe not so much as some of the ones that I took off the list. It's just a general list. Let's discuss what stories I think are better than they're given credit for. There's at least one for each Doctor up to McCoy. Paul McGann, he's only got one episode, so there wouldn't be much jeopardy in which one I was going to choose if I included him. So there's a TV movie is not on the list. It's not even underrated. People think it's not great, but Paul McGann's good. What's my opinion? It's not great, but Paul McGann's good. There you go. There's no new series Doctor Who on the list because I feel like every new series story, no matter how bad it is, has at least someone out there that is willing to fervently defend it and say it's great. So that's fine. They don't need to be defended by me. And again, most of the bad ones I think are bad. These stories, for the most part, are either stories that I think are really quite good and no one really cares about them, or they're ones that everyone says are terrible and I think they're not great, but they're not that bad. The number one story, like I said, there's no particular order to this, but my number one choice is the story that I think is the most underrated. It's a story I love. I really like it. Everyone hates it. Everyone. You'll see when we get there. If you've ever spoken to me before, you probably already know which one it is. But you haven't. No one knows who I am. I'm a mystery. I'm an enigma. Let's get going with this. Let's do it. Let's get into the list. So, to start us off, this story, the reason I didn't make this video last week is because I was waiting to pick up the DVD so I can show you what I'm talking about. The Underwater Menace is number 10. We'll be honest with this story. It's not great. This is not a good story by any stretch. It is, however, the earliest Patrick Troughton story with anything surviving, like episode-wise. It's fine. It's not good, it's not that bad. We found part 2 of this a couple of years back, I remember this happening. And people are saying, wow, I wish they'd found literally any other story. You know, someone once, and I don't remember for certain who it was that said this, so I can't directly quote them. But someone said to me, oh, I wish they'd lose part 2 again. What? It's not that bad. It's a bit silly. It's very strange. The villain is so over the top. It descends kind of into pantomime on the level of I was gonna say Horns of Nimon. I don't think it's even as bad as Horns of Nimon. Horns of Nimon, by the way, is not on this list. It's terrible. But honestly, there is a lot worse than the Underwater Menace. I don't know why everyone hates it. I don't. So the next one on the list, and it's I know I said there's no real order to this list. This one is early on because it's the thumbnail, so there's no surprise. But it's Full Circle, and this position I was going to give to Warrior's Gate because it's also a story that people tend to say, oh, it's a bit pretentious, it's a bit silly, it thinks it's smarter than it is, all of which is true. But I don't know, it has a sort of interesting, sort of smart charm to it I usually like. But recently I was rewatching Series 18 and honestly I enjoyed Full Circle more. And no one ever talks about Full Circle. I don't understand why. It's got a really interesting idea to it. We've got this, spoilers by the way, there's a space freighter that crashes on this planet, and supposedly the inhabitants of the space freighter and then their descendants have been continually repairing and restoring the freighter in preparation to leave, but over many, many generations. And there's swamp men that come out of the marshes every so often, and everyone hides in the freighter. Except it turns out that the swamp creatures got into the freighter at some point, killed the people on the freighter, evolved into creatures that just looked like the original freighter people, and then continued on as if they were the originals. I just find that really interesting. And then we've got the new swamp creatures, which have evolved from the spiders. They don't like these ones because, well, for the same reason the original swamp creatures didn't like the freighter creatures, because they're different. I just find that really interesting. It's a bit underplayed. It's a really interesting concept. They don't quite make of it what they could have done, but I still really like it. And on top of that, we've got Romana. I love her outfit in that story. That's why I'm wearing it in the picture. That's the only reason why I'm wearing Romana's outfit in the picture. Moving on. So next on the list, it's the mutants, which was a tricky one to add. This one was kind of just added in there so we could have something Pertwee on the list. John Pertwee is my favourite Doctor, and almost all of his stories are great. There's very few bad stories, and everyone knows that. There's not many stories that people don't like, and the ones that they don't like are the few bad ones. This is the only one I think is kind of on the line. I like it a lot. I think it's got interesting social commentary. It's well performed. It's got good effects. It's an interesting adventure. The characters are quite memorable. The set design's quite good. The costume design is very good. Given that it comes immediately before the Time Monster, which is terrible, you'd think that it would look more favourable for comparison, but no one really cares. Which is a shame, because it's, like I said, it's a good story. It's not so underrated that I would have put it in my list if it wasn't for the fact that the only other stories of Pertwee that people really don't like are the Time Monster and Colony in Space. I also don't like those stories. So like, this is the only option we've got. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But yeah, mutants. It's fine. So next, we've got kind of another controversial one. We already had Underwater Menace, which everyone hates, and I think it's okay. It's not that bad. This is a story which everyone hates. I think it's quite good. It's got its shortcomings. It's Creature from the Pit, and I like it. It's the supporting characters are good. Romana is really well sort of portrayed. She's a very strong character in it, which is always nice. Her character writing tends to be variable depending on who's writing her. When she's well written, she's pretty much a prototype for what a female Doctor could be, which is nice. It's sort of 30 and a bit years earlier, and we're seeing it's more like 40 years, isn't it? About 40 years, yeah. It's the Doctor in female form, but she's her own person. I really like Romana as a character. This is one of her better stories. She outwits a big gang of hairy men, which is the sort of subtlety that we're hoping from Chris Chibnall. But it's good. It's the only thing that lets it down. The monster is a mess. The monster design looks awful. It's terrible, and that's the thing that everyone remembers. They've got one of the best film set jungles in Doctor Who history, like Planet of Evil, amazing film set jungle. Face of Evil, amazing film set jungle. Creature from the Pit, probably the best jungle on film. It looks great. Everyone hates the story, I don't know why. Series 17 in general, there's a lot of stuff from 16, 17, 18 that either made the list or nearly made the list. I think I think because the early Tom Baker is so strong, people kind of tend to just sort of dismiss almost all of late Tom Baker, and I think it's a shame because there's a lot of good material, and I think, interestingly, Nightmare of Eden almost made the list because it's really dark. There's so much like death and really grim, dark concepts, but because there's a lot of jokes in there, and the monsters look silly, everyone kind of forgets that. It didn't make the list again. There's too many Tom Baker stories that I think are underrated. But yeah, this one and Nightmare of Eden after it, I think are both very good stories. So the next one's another one I was kind of reaching a bit to find a story to fill a space that would otherwise have another Tom Baker story in it. Because Colin Baker, in recent years, has kind of had a re-evaluation. Whereas for a while everyone said, nope, all of Colin's stuff is terrible. In the last 10, 15 years, everyone's been like, hold on, it's not that bad. Which is kind of the purpose of this video. You've It's not that bad in me. I feel like a while ago I could probably have said, you know, Attack of the Cybermen would have been a good one. I love Attack of the Cybermen. People generally seem to think it's terrible, but now I feel like they don't. It made the top pick of viewers' choice for best Colin Baker story on the Doctor Who 40th anniversary thing, however long ago that was, 15 years ago. It's not that good. The best Colin Baker story is Vengeance of Varos. Just so you know, that's definitively the correct answer. I will accept Revelation of the Daleks, but you're wrong. But yes, anyway, I'm not talking about any of those stories. This is Terror of the Vervoids, which I think is the closest thing we have to a story that people don't like that is good. Because Time Lash, no one likes it. It's not that good. Twin Dilemma is my least favourite story. I'm not defending it. So, yeah, this is the next best thing we've got. I like it. I think this is a good story. It's a fun little murder mystery. It's a bit light-hearted, but it's fine. It's quite good. Chris Chibnall, the new showrunner, slated it. He thought it was awful. He thought it was just the worst thing ever. An insult. I think it's quite good. I don't even mind Mel in it. She's fine. She's not that bad. Kind of shoehorned in, but she's fine. The Vervoid design is really interesting. The supporting characters are interesting. It's a fun story. The effects could be better. One of the cliffhangers is just another crash zoom on Colin Baker's face, which is like half of Trial of a Time Lord. I think this is a good story. I think this story is fine, and everyone hates it, so that's in it. It's good enough for my list. We'll move on. Okay, we're halfway through. Now we're getting into stories that are on the second half of the list. There is no connection to any of this. But this one, very recently on the Doctor Who Guide's Doctor Who DVD's UK versus America release, both presenters slammed this story. They were not kind to it, and it's another one I don't understand why people don't like it. It's the Ledger Hive. I really like it. I think this is a really nice story. We've got a massive upgrade to the sets, to the music, to the effects. New title sequence is a bit of a downgrade, to be honest. But the costume, I love Tom Baker's Series 18 costume. I like it with that. I like this only story he wears the purple hat. Romana's costume looks great. Yeah, all right, we get it. You don't need to show the picture. Oh, never mind. Anyway, yeah, it's good. The Famazi monsters are kind of not that well realised. They kind of look a bit fake. The Argolans with the things on their head, I think they look quite good. The woman that runs the company, I find her character really interesting. I like her a lot. There's a fun mystery. The set, did I say the sets? I think I said the sets. The sets, all sets all of a sudden have ceilings. That's something I noticed, because generally in a studio you can't have a set with a low ceiling because it's awkward for the cameras. But suddenly Series 18 comes along, all the sets have ceilings. All the corridors have ceilings. It's something I've never really noticed until recently. Is that enough to make me defend the story? Not on its own. It's a bit slow moving at points. The villain isn't that threatening because it's just, what's his name, Pangle. But on the whole, I think this is a good story. I like it. I don't know, again, everyone doesn't like it. Why? What's the Ledger Hive ever done to you? The next story isn't one of the ones that everyone hates, and I'm like, why? It's not that bad. This is a story that no one cares about. No one gives any thought to this unless they're actively watching it, and then after it's finished, they forget about it again. And I don't understand because it's great. It's a Rebos operation, and you're probably thinking, why? What's so great about the Rebos operation? I don't know. I'm struggling. I shouldn't have made a video. I can't defend any of these choices particularly. I just think it's a really good story. It's got tight script. The dialogue's really good. It's Robert Holmes that wrote it, so I mean, obviously all the characters are really well written. It's an exciting adventure. You've got a few episodes with a bit of a heist thing going on, and then you've got the sort of deadly procession through caves. It's a very Doctor Who story. It's the sort of thing that I feel is quality-wise comparable to some of the big heavy hitters, but just no one cares about it. I don't know if it's because it comes right at the start of Key to Time, and people see that as a slog. Key to Time does kind of waver towards the end. I mean, the last two stories of Key to Time are awful. But to be honest, the rest of Key to Time I think is really good. Androids of Tara nearly made the list. It's another one I really like, and no one cares about it. But I went with Rebos. All the characters are really good. It's a really well-rounded story. It introduces Romana, who's a companion that sticks around for a long time that I have a lot of affection for. I don't know. I don't know why no one has anything interesting to say about this story. I think it's really good. Okay, so we're getting near the end of the list now. If you're getting bored, don't worry. We've just got the really big hitters. Well, actually, we've not. To be honest, number 3 is Delta and the Bannerman. I really like Delta and the Bannerman. I think it's got a lovely atmosphere. I love all the stuff in Wales. It feels like just a lovely little warm little holiday in 3 episodes. It's just this little fun, cozy little story. After 2 back-to-back serials of absolute dreck, we've got just this nice little holiday for 3 episodes, and it's really nice. And everyone says, "Oh, series 24, it's all bad." It's not. I love this one. This is really nice. This is really nice. It's flanked by a lot of so-so stories, but it's great. The villain, who's the actor's name I forget, it's Don something. He's also a villain in an episode of Red Dwarf. He's got a really husky, threatening, gravelly voice and this dreadful, pockmarked, scruffy-looking face. And he looks like the sort of person you wouldn't want to bump into, which is exactly what you need in a villain. He's menacing. It's just a fun. The story is it that interesting? Yeah. The supporting hero characters, are they that interesting? Yeah. But it's just a lovely story. It makes me feel good, and in life could you ask for anything more? Maybe. So I like to think I've left my most controversial choices for last. As I said, my personal favourite story that everyone hates is going to be at the end. Before that, I want to get you all riled up in preparation. I want you to feel the sense of where we're going with this list. When I show you that number 2 on the list is the Gunfighters. Yeah, you feeling that? You think I've gone mad. You maybe thought I was mad from the start, which I can see why you think that. But I honestly, is the Gunfighters actually that bad? I know everyone's you think straight away, yeah, of course it is, but is it though? Because I think it's quite fun. I think it's a load of silly nonsense that's very, very entertaining. We've got the song. The song is a bit silly. We've got a narration in the song. That's the only Doctor Who story that has that. But, I mean, we had a Doctor Who story that was entirely found footage. Admittedly, it was awful, so that's not a great defense. But it's fine. It doesn't do any harm. This little song about what's going on. The sets are amazing. I think they got them like second hand from another production, which is why we've got these ridiculously good Wild West town set. The guest cast are all fine. The accents are so-so, but there's not really any terrible performances in there. Peter Purvis is really good as Stephen. William Hartnell's wonderful as always as the Doctor. I really like the Gunfighters. On a day when I think I'm going to watch just a Doctor Who story, I will pick something, not particularly in any sequence. I'll just choose something. More than once, I have chosen to watch the Gunfighters, just because it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun story, and you should feel bad for hating it as much as you do. It's fine. It's lovely. It's great. It's not great. It's okay. It's quite good. It's quite a good story. I like it. But that does rather make you wonder. Well, Gunfighters that's a controversial choice. What on earth could be number 1? I've already said it's not the Twin Dilemma, which everyone hates. We've had a lot of Tom Baker stories, so it's probably not going to be Destiny of the Daleks or Meglos or any of these ones, or Attack of the Cybermen. And you're right, it's not. Which Doctor have we not seen yet? If you said Peter Davison, when I cut to whatever I just cut to, like the number 1, you're right. We haven't done Peter Davison yet. What story of his is going to be on the list? Well, now we need to get serious. As if there's nothing serious about this. It's Warriors of the Deep. I think that Warriors of the Deep is a great story. Not a good story. Not an okay story. I think Warriors of the Deep is a great story. And everyone hates it. Why? Why do you hate this so much? I've seen Stu Bagfull. This made #1 on his list of top 10 worst classic stories. You're wrong. No. What? No. No. Everyone hates the BBC website. Says it's garbage. Everyone says it's terrible. And here's what I think the problem is. All of these stories have something kind of letting them down. With Gunfighters, it's the silly song. Everyone remembers the silly song. Creature from the Pit, bad monster effect. Underwater Menace. To be honest, Underwater Menace, I think it's because we've only got 2 episodes, and the restoration on the DVD is just awful. And I should say, not at the fault of the restoration team. They offered to do a decent restoration. It was going to be an animation. They paid for it, then they decided not to use it. Then the restoration team said, "Hey, for free, we'll do like what we did in Web of Fear." Nope, they were told, "Don't do that either. We want just the bare minimum, nothing release." So that's what we got, and I think that colors people's views. But with this story, it's the visuals. This is a great story, let down by the fact that it looks awful. The monster design's okay-ish, apart from the Merca, which is just a pantomime horse. The set design, I think, is fantastic, but it's overlit horribly. It's essentially a base under siege story, which is a Doctor Who staple. They're stuck underwater, it's claustrophobic, except it doesn't look claustrophobic because every set is lit, just maximum light shining, zero shadows anywhere. If they lit it like Under the Lake Before the Flood from Series 9 of New Who, I think that would have added a lot to it. The monsters move horribly. Everyone just these casual Silurian blokes just sauntering about. There's nothing threatening to them. The Merca is, fun fact if you don't know this, the people operating the Merca are the same 2 guys that operated the pantomime horse in Rent-A-Ghost, which is just literally just a pantomime horse. That's not threatening at all. And I think between these 2 things, everyone sees monsters moving in an unthreatening way, zero threat coming from the visual side of things. The story has so much going on. It's got threat of nuclear annihilation, paralleling the humans versus the Silurians. There's humans versus humans. There's a wealth of guest characters, some of whom have their own agendas. They want to kind of manipulate other people into starting a war because they're working for the other side. It's almost, and I'm going to be burned as a heretic for saying this, it's got parallels to Power of the Daleks, where there's all this stuff going on. At the end of the day, they're all fighting for their own individual purposes. It's all for nothing. Everyone dies. They all die. Sorry, spoilers, but no one likes this story, so it's not really a spoiler. Everyone dies. And I think that is actually one of the things I like the best about the story. Peter Davison's Doctor, out of all the classic series Doctors, has the most sort of concise and purposeful character arc. We have him at the start, really optimistic, everything's nice and smiley and sunny and cheerful and playing cricket and all his young friends to dance around with, and he's just the most optimistic Doctor. And gradually, Earthshock happens, Kinda before that, with his companion's mind being messed about with. Earthshock happens, we've got the Master just keeps on messing him around. There's old friends from when he was young betraying him in Arc of Infinity. We've got Barusa doing the exact same thing in the 5 Doctors. We've got Resurrection of the Daleks. This gradually darkening series of Series 21. Resurrection of the Daleks, where everything's so grim that Tegan just has enough and leaves. And it all leads through to the Caves of Androzani, where this optimistic Doctor that tries to see the best in every situation is stuck in a situation where everything is bad, everyone is bad, there's no redeemable people, and he's just stuck trying to escape and save his life and his friend's life. And this story is such an important part of that progression. This is the time where the Doctor couldn't save anyone. And at the end, he tries to broker peace between the humans and the Silurians and stop the humans from destroying each other and themselves. And he can't. Everyone dies. And he just sees all his efforts have been for nothing. And that line delivery of "there should have been another way," it's just, it's such a great ending to a story. It's so dark. I like things to be a bit dark sometimes. I like that. And you know, I could speak for ages on this. I'm not going to because I've already. This video is like half an hour long. I thought it'd be about 10 minutes. Sorry. If you've made it to the end, well done. But I love it. It's such a great story. And yes, of course, there is also a picture of me edited into that story, so we might as well show that, get out of your system. Incidentally, that is also my favourite Tegan costume, although I wouldn't say that particularly has a bearing on how much I like the story. I just really like this one. And that is why this Warriors of the Deep is, in my opinion, and you know, it is just an opinion, I'm sure everyone watching this will disagree with me, but I believe this is the most underrated story of all of Doctor Who. It's one of the best, and everyone thinks it's one of the worst. That's a pretty big drop. Interestingly, as I was saying, largely it's visual, the issues with this story, particularly director-wise, because this is Pennant Roberts that directed this, who did great work on Face of Evil. He did, what else did he do? Sunmakers, that was pretty well directed. Shada was one of his. That was really well directed for what there was of it. And then there's a bit of a break, and he did this, and he did Time Lash, which are both visually horrible stories. And I think had he directed, I'm going to speak heresy again. Are you ready? If Pennant Roberts had directed Caves of Androzani and Graham Harper had directed Warriors of the Deep, I think the opinions of those two stories would be the other way around. I think everyone would love this one and hate Caves. That is how, and I love Caves of Androzani. That's one of my favourite stories of all time. But so is this. So that's my list anyway. Feel free to leave comments slamming me with hatred for saying that Warriors of the Deep is comparable to Caves of Androzani and Power of the Daleks. I look forward to reading them, or not. I might get no comments on this. That's pretty standard for a video by me. If you enjoyed this, if you've somehow sat through however long I've been talking, and you actually enjoyed this, I've got bad news. This is not, as I said at the start, this is not at all the sort of video I usually make. There is nothing else of this variety on my channel. Having said that, if you want more videos that are about Doctor Who, discursive looks at various things, I would recommend to you checking out the Doctor Who Guide, which is a Doctor Who channel that I watch myself. It's run by a really nice guy, and he makes videos that don't ramble on for half an hour. What more could you ask for? It's great. Go. I'll put a link. I will try and put a link on my screen somewhere. There probably. If I don't, they've changed the link system. I don't know if you can do this anymore. If not, there'll be a link in the description. Go and check him out. He's lovely. He's a really nice guy. Good videos. I'm not in them. That's a selling point right there. So that's all I've got to say today. That's been a long video. That'll be enough video for the next few weeks. I've probably been confusing you all by randomly slamming up pictures from my Doctor Who 10 Instagram on the screen. I've made like hundreds of these. I'm not going to link you to them, just so you know. I didn't make these for the video. Those already existed. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you got something out of this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know. Or don't. You don't have to. But thanks for watching. Have a nice day. I think that must have to be the most unconcise, not to the point, rambling video about Doctor Who anyone's ever made. I would love to be challenged on that, but that was a mess. I thought, yeah, let's just slam these out. I should write you know what I should do? I should script these and not just ramble. Then I'd get everything said that I want to say and not waffle so much. Will I write scripts? No, because I'm lazy. Bye.
Traffic on the hour.